Hi, everybody. Hope everybody's having a nice Saturday so far. Um, I wanted to do just a few minutes of commentary here, just to kind of explain the goal I have for this channel. Um, I am 7 months out from leaving uh, my toxic marriage. I was married to the narcissist in my life for 16 years, and we were together as a couple for 7 years before we got married. And it wasn't until the um, last year that I realized just how toxic my situation was. I always had that nagging feeling kind of through a lot of the marriage that something was wrong, but didn't really come to the realization and really face the true reality of the situation until about a year ago. And my aim here is to help as many people, male or female, who are involved in a toxic situation. I want to help as many people as I possibly can, but even if I just help one person and convince them that they can walk away from this and they can and do deserve better. There's better situations out there. You don't have to put up with abuse. It's not okay and it's not normal. It's for a long time that's what kept me stuck in it, is that I just assumed that this is how it was for everybody. This is how it was for all married couples. This is what all men are like. And I made too many assumptions and I gave him the benefit of the doubt too much. And I was too forgiving and too trusting and too naive. So if I can just convince one person, if I can just help one person to see that they don't have to put up with this, that they can find better relationships, they can surround themselves with healthy, functional people and live a happier life, then my work here is done. If I can just convince one person of that. And this is I think all the information I'm putting out can be helpful to anyone in this situation, whether you're married or not, whether you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s. I think it can be helpful to anyone. And, but I'm especially directing this at young people, specifically young women, especially if you're not married yet. Because let me tell you, I had plenty of chances to walk away from this. There were plenty of red flags when I was in my 20s, and I just ignored them and gave him the benefit of the doubt. And I forgave and forgot and moved on and just assumed, he was having a bad day and refused to recognize that there was a dangerous pattern developing and refused to recognize that it was a pattern that was going to continue to escalate in frequency and intensity, because that is what almost always happens. Because as the narcissist ages, they get worse. They do not change. Um, the excerpts I've been reading from Patricia Evans' books on abusive relationships, those were very helpful to me. After I read the books, I started moving on to the YouTube video blogs, and those have been tremendously helpful. I want to just say, if you see any of the patterns, the behavior patterns that I've been describing in my videos in your partner, please keep digging. Do your homework. Keep seeking answers. And if they won't talk to you about it, and if they refuse to get help for their behavior problems, then you start putting a plan in place to get yourself out of that situation, because you cannot make someone change. They will not change unless they want to change. And they will not want to change if they refuse to recognize that there's a problem in their behavior. If they're constantly blaming you for their bad behavior and they refuse to see any other point of view. Now, I'm not saying that a person can't have a bad time in their life and have a struggle with putting up some of the defense mechanisms that I've been describing in my videos, because we've all gone to some of these defense mechanisms at one time or another in our life: withholding, denial, trivialization, criticizing. We've all used those defense mechanisms at one time or another. But when a person consistently goes to these defense mechanisms and that is their dominant form of behavior when they're interacting with other people, what you've got there is a manipulator. You've got a bully, you've got a narcissist. And there's a myriad of reasons that causes people to make that their dominant form of behavior when they're interacting with other people. When their ego just takes over their personality like that, and they've been in that behavior pattern for decades, you're not going to convince them to change. Not you, not your love, not anybody is going to convince them to change. Don't make the same mistake that I made. Don't keep going back. You don't have to put up with this. You do not. And especially if you haven't married the person, you're in the best possible situation you can be in. If you're not married to this person, you don't have children with this person, all you got to do is walk away and use the word no. And yeah, they're going to cry and give you the crocodile tear routine and tell you how much they love you and how much they miss you and how much they want you back. And they're going to tell you all the things that you want to hear. And you're going to think, oh, this is it. They're finally going to make that change. They're finally going to make that push to be a healthy, mature individual. And they're not. They're saying what you want to hear to keep you in your place so they can keep abusing you. Because people like this have to have someone beneath them. They have to have a punching bag to vent their frustrations, because they have no inner self. When a person turns to these defense mechanisms as the dominant pattern of their behavior, they lose their true self, and then they can no longer stimulate their self from within. They can no longer find happiness from within themselves and make their own happiness. They derive everything from other people's reactions, or else they feel like they don't exist. So these people are crippled. They are dysfunctional. They're not going to change. Inner Integration is a YouTube channel, and she's very good. She explains this type of relationship from the perspective of being in a romantic relationship with the person, and she does a wonderful job of explaining to a T the overwhelming aura that they put out, how you have this nagging sense that something's not quite right, but you're inexplicably drawn to this person. You have this unexplainable need to please them, to, if I can just, fix this one thing about myself, then we'll be there. Then we'll be over that hump. Then they're going to love me unconditionally, and we're going to have the fairy tale story happiness. And let me tell you, it doesn't ever happen. They're going to trick you into thinking if you could just do this one little thing, or try a little harder, then I'll really be happy with you. And it's not going to happen. Inner integration. She did an interview with Dr. George Simon last week. She posted it on her channel on June 8th. Check that out. He also describes the behavior patterns of personality disordered people. And he does a very good job explaining it in everyday language, and how you can light yourself on fire and jump through hoops. In fact, I often described my marriage to people as I was jumping through rings of fire trying to make this man happy, and he had an ever-changing list of demands. It was unfucking believable, and he wasn't usually willing to compromise much to make me happy. Every now and then he'd throw me a bone, and I think that they call that dosing. That's how they keep you hooked. Every now and then they'll tell you something wonderful about yourself. Every now and then they'll give you a compliment. Every now and then they'll do you a small favor or help you with a chore around the house and make you feel like, okay, yes, they're still in this. We still have a relationship going. That's how they keep you hooked. But they don't really mean it. It's not sincere. The only time they do something nice for you is because they're expecting you to give up everything for their happiness. And you deserve better. You can find better out there, and you deserve it. So don't put up with it. Don't keep going back like I did. If you're in a situation that's volatile and you think, or maybe your partner has already become violent, contact your domestic abuse shelter, your local domestic abuse shelter, and get help from them. They can give you good advice, help you to get out of the situation. If you don't have, I would say the number one thing to go to, if you have friends and family that can help you, if you're in a situation where you're living with this person or you're married to this person and you can't necessarily just walk away, find friends and family who can help you. But if not, turn to your local domestic abuse shelter and get help. If you're not in a volatile situation, I would say immediately start getting help if you can, talking to friends and family. If you have the means, if your insurance covers it, and you have the financial means, see a therapist. That can help. But the number one thing that I did, because I can tell you, talking to a therapist once every 3 weeks for 45 minutes isn't going to do it. And eventually your friends and family get sick of hearing it. And when I found this whole YouTube community, it opened up a whole new world for me. It made me feel validated. It made all the difference in the world. Like, oh, there's the answer. This is the problem. I knew something was wrong in my relationship, and I couldn't put it into words. I couldn't explain it. And I started to think that maybe I was the crazy one. Maybe I expected too much. Maybe I had unrealistic expectations in my marriage. Maybe all men are like this. And I'm just being unrealistic. And then when I realized, I'm not the crazy one. It's not me. It's him. It made all the difference in the world. So if my channel helps you, keep listening. I'm going to try and put as much information out there that I think will help. If you're dealing with an addictive personality Um, my narcissist was, and I would say he was mainly overt. If you've been kind of getting into the narcissistic personality lingo, I would say he was more overt, but he did also use covert tactics, and they will do that as they age because they, they get, once they're adults, they can't, they realize they can't go around just punching people and yelling insults at people and name calling, so they become more covert in their tactics. But I would say when he was young, he was definitely more overt. As a kid, outright overt bully. From what I've heard about him as a kid. With me, he was sometimes very overt. Although he never did physically abuse me, but in the end, that's what pushed me out the door because I felt like things were escalating quickly. He had a drug problem, and I didn't know if he could lose control of his temper because I wasn't even sure what he was taking and how much of it he was taking. So I felt like that was not a safe situation to be in. But especially if you're dealing with someone with a highly addictive personality, like I was, um, another good channel to watch is Randy Andretti. Um, her husband, the stories that she tells, her ex, very similar to mine with the sex addiction. Um, and I believe she said hers was an alcoholic as well. Mine was more addicted to drugs and sex, and porn, and having unrealistic expectations of me in the bedroom. If you're dealing with anything like this, especially if you're not married to the person, walk away because it only gets worse. It doesn't get any better, and they don't change. So, I just wanted to put that message out there. Um, oh, another good video blog I wanted to mention was Narcissist Free. I found a lot of similarities there, and hers is more of she describes a lot more of the covert behaviors and the trickery, trying to trick you into things. She explains a lot of that very, very well. Her channel's also very good. And I can't even think of all of them right now. Ollie Matthews is another good one. Watch his videos. Um, you'll probably find a lot of stories. He reads the stories from his viewers and gives a great his own perspective on it, and he's usually really spot on. So I would suggest checking out his channel as well. And if not for anything else, it makes you feel validated. It makes you feel like, oh, I'm not the crazy one. There's other people out there who are having the same exact experience. Because I mean, when you get sucked into these toxic relationships, you start to feel so isolated and so alone, and you feel like you're losing your mind and your soul, and you just feel like nobody else would understand, like no one would believe you. You feel like you really start to feel like something is wrong with you because basically that's what you're being told by your abuser, whether they're saying it directly or more covertly. The general implication is they're right, you're wrong, you're to blame for everything that's wrong in your relationship, and you're broken. There's something wrong with you. And they, excuse me, they do that on purpose to make you feel like there's nowhere else you can go. They want you to feel trapped. They want you to feel like, well, where else am I going to go if I leave this marriage or if I leave this relationship? You know, they put you in a position of accepting less than you deserve. So, think I'm going to go ahead and end this video here. If anybody has any comments, please leave them below, and I'll be back soon. Have a nice weekend.